people when our next guest found out that she had ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. She moaned, "If only I had known sooner." After 30 plus years as an accomplished high-end fashion jewelry designer, that late in life ADHD diagnosis combined with the pandemic led to her becoming a certified ADHD life coach, educator, and designer of the ADHD social club system called the Vast Connection. Please welcome Andrea Pope. And Andrea, what are the consequences of being overlooked when someone has ADHD?
The consequences are sometimes minimal and sometimes horrific. It depends entirely on where you are in your life. For example, when things are running smoothly and everything is going right, consequences are minimal. But when something happens where your entire life changes suddenly, say having to move suddenly, job change, and there's the transition can be horrific when you're undiagnosed. We tend to live outside in. Our environment helps us regulate our emotions, and we tend to set ourselves up with patterns. When those patterns get interrupted and we don't know we have ADHD, it kind of feels like you're going insane.
Talk about when you were diagnosed. What did that diagnosis do for you?
That's an interesting point because I wasn't diagnosed by a doctor. I was diagnosed by another ADHDer. A customer of mine figured out I have ADHD. And I didn't even know what that was at the time. But I went to the doctor. I did the test. It's 18 multiple choice questions. That's it. That was extremely illuminating. Because if I had seen that test at any point in my life, I would have known immediately what was wrong with my behaviors. Because ADHD is a social disability based on a neurotransmitter issue.
So what can you do?
From the point I found out, that's when the education started. First, I learned about the medication, but that's nowhere near enough. Medication is great. Pills don't teach skills, though. What we do need is a social emotional education. That is critical. Absolutely critical. You need to know what your vehicle is. A way to describe it is a neurotypical person is like a car with an automatic transmission, where an ADHDer is more like a manual transmission. We have to pay attention to our chemicals and manage them manually. Be aware.
Is that when you came up with the idea for the Vast Connection?
Exactly. I was on my own during the pandemic, and I realized that the social emotional aspect is critical. And at that point in time, there was only support groups for the deficit disorder part of ADHD. VAST means variable attention stimulus trait, which is far less of a disorder and far more of a different way of thinking. And the Vast Connection is focused on socialization. Small local groups that connect to practice being social, to share tips and tricks, but to actually throw parties because we're social people. We love to party. I just came back from the Baltimore ADHD conference, and I can tell you one thing. Nobody can party like ADHDers. We let it rip. Woo!
So how is your group different from any of the other ADHD groups that are out there?
We're very specifically targeting local groups. Somebody within, say, 10 miles or 12 kilometers of where you're living. Because when you're in a jam, you don't need somebody to help you online when the problem is actually maybe a physical one, or you need a shoulder to cry on, or you need a hug, or you need to go for a drink, to have someone to hang out with. That's what the vast connection is. I'm looking at a model based a little bit on the Toastmasters model for public speaking, except we're going to be working on socialization.
What does it mean for you to help other people step outside the box and go, you know what? I'm like this other person and we can help one another?
For me, that's the magic. That's connection. That's how humans operate the best. The one thing we all need is to feel connected and to be around people like ourselves, no matter what the likeness is. That's when we're comfortable, when we feel safe, when we feel known. That is what is critical, to be connected, regardless of what your status in what part of society. You need somebody like yourself to connect with.
Did you feel invisible almost before your diagnosis, or were you even aware?
I am not an invisible person. Hello, not invisible in any way, shape, or form. But what was frustrating was I couldn't get at the GP, the psychologist, the psychiatrist to figure out why I was so odd. I kept trying to explain I'm not the same as everyone else, but not one of them gave me the ADHD test. That's, in hindsight, why I felt invisible. How come nobody else could see it? How could my medical people not see it? Like, hello, I'm very obviously an ADHDer. Yet none of my education people, none of my medical people caught it. Only another ADHDer caught it. How invisible do you want to get?
Yeah. Well, it's incredible what you have done and what you are doing with the ADHD community, and hopefully it only grows from here. How can folks find you or find out more about Vast Connection?
thevastconnection.com. We can do the QR code, and it will take you to the ADHD test pretty much directly. You can download it, do the test yourself quietly and privately. It's only 18 questions. That's it.
It's the same 18 questions that you answered whenever you went to the doctor.
It's a DSM-5 question. And I got it off of the internet. I didn't even get it from the doctor. I got it off the internet. It's not a hidden secret. If anybody had shown me that at any point in time, I would have known. And everyone needs to know what vehicle they're driving so that they know what terrain they want to drive on.
Very well said. Thank you, Andrea. We appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.